I've been a funeral director in Shreveport for 19 years. I've prepared bodies, embalmed them, dressed them, made them presentable for families who needed one last look at someone they loved. I understand decomposition. I understand what happens to human tissue over time. What I saw in that casket made me question everything I thought I knew. The call came in February. A development company had purchased land on the edge of town, old property that used to be part of Magnolia Grove Cemetery back in the 30s. Most of the graves had been relocated in the 60s when they built the highway, but apparently they'd missed a section. Ground-penetrating radar found 12 coffins still buried there. The city hired my firm to handle the exhumations and reburials. Standard procedure. Happens more often than people think. Old cemeteries get absorbed by urban sprawl. Bodies have to be moved. We started on a Monday morning. Cold for Louisiana. Maybe 40 degrees. The kind of cold that gets into your bones when you're standing on damp ground. The first 11 exhumations went smooth. The coffins were mostly collapsed. Wood rot, metal corrosion. Some contained bones and fabric remnants. Others were nearly empty, just stains in the soil where bodies used to be. 90 years underground does that. The 12th coffin was different. We found it at the far edge of the property, under a bare pecan tree, about 7 feet down. When the backhoe cleared the last layer of soil, I saw metal. Not rusted, not corroded. Dark gray steel, almost black, with rivets along the seams. "That's a sealed casket," said my assistant, a young guy named Corey Blake. He'd been with me for 3 years, good worker, steady hands. They didn't use those much back then. He was right. Sealed caskets, the kind with rubber gaskets and airtight seals, didn't become common until the 50s. But here was one from 1932, according to the survey records. We hoisted it out with straps. The weight felt wrong. Too heavy. A collapsed casket, even metal, shouldn't weigh this much after 90 years. We loaded it onto the flatbed truck, transported it to the funeral home, set it on the preparation table in the back room. That's where we'd open it, assess the remains, transfer them to a new casket for reburial. The manufacturer's plate on the side was still legible. Eternal Rest Casket Company, model SR12, hermetically sealed. And below that, a name engraved on a small brass plate, Josephine Pruitt, 1898 to 1932. I ran the name through parish records, found her death certificate. Josephine Pruitt, age 34, cause of death, hemorrhagic fever. That made sense. Sealed casket, infectious disease. They would have wanted to contain any contamination. Corey helped me position the casket. We wore full protective gear, gloves, masks, face shields. Standard protocol for any remains this old, especially with a communicable disease on the death certificate. "You want a photograph before we open?" Corey asked. I nodded. Documentation, always document. Took pictures from every angle. The casket was pristine. No dents, no damage. Just that dark gray metal with beads of condensation on the surface. Condensation. Inside a sealed casket. 90 years underground. That should have been my first warning. I found the seal release. Modern sealed caskets have them, a key mechanism that releases the gasket pressure. This one was old style, a lever near the foot end. "Ready?" I asked. Corey nodded. I pulled the lever, heard a hiss. Like opening a vacuum-sealed jar, air pressure equalizing. Then a click as the seal broke. That's when the smell hit. Not decay. Not the sweet, sick stench of decomposition. Iron, pure iron, like a slaughterhouse, like the inside of a butcher's freezer. the metallic tang so strong I could taste it through my mask. Corey stepped back. "What the hell?" I lifted the lid, just an inch, to assess before full opening. Fluid poured out. Not seeped, not dripped. Poured. Thick, dark, red-black liquid, viscous like syrup, flowing over the casket's edge onto the table. It pooled on the stainless steel surface. Spread. Dripped onto the floor with wet slapping sounds. "Close it!" Corey shouted. "Close it!" But I was frozen, staring. Because the fluid was warm, I could feel heat radiating from it, could see steam rising in the cold room. I lifted the lid further. Josephine Pruitt lay inside, and she looked like she'd died yesterday, not preserved, not mummified, not leathered or discolored. She looked fresh. Her skin had color, pale but not corpse pale, not gray. Her hair was dark, neatly arranged around her face. She wore a blue dress, not faded, not rotted, intact. But it was her veins that made my stomach turn. They were visible beneath her skin, dark lines running up her neck, across her hands. And they were swollen, distended, like they were still carrying blood. Like her heart might start beating any second. More fluid pooled around her. It had soaked into her dress, stained it darker. The casket was full of it, at least 2 inches deep, and it was still leaking out, running over the sides. "We need to call someone," Corey said. His voice was shaking. "This isn't normal. This isn't—" "Get the sample containers," I said. My voice came out steady, even though my hands weren't. "We need to document this. Test the fluid." "Are you insane? We need to seal that thing back up and— We're funeral directors. We deal with bodies. This is a body. We document it." But I didn't believe my own words, because this wasn't just a body. This was something else. Something wrong. I took samples of the fluid, filled 3 vials. The liquid was warm against my gloved hands, thick. It clung to the container sides like paint. I photographed everything. Josephine's face, her hands. Those swollen veins, the pool of fluid, the inside of the casket, lined with some kind of rubberized material, not the usual velvet or satin. Then I touched her hand, just briefly, to check for rigidity. Her skin was pliable, soft, not rigid, not bloated, not leathery. It felt like living tissue. And beneath my fingers, I swear I felt warmth. Corey made a sound, halfway between a gasp and a sob. Her face. Look at her face. I looked. Josephine's mouth had changed. It had been closed when I first opened the casket. Now it was slightly open, just a crack. Lips parted like she was about to speak or breathe. "We're done," I said. "Close the lid." We sealed the casket, locked the lever, cleaned up the fluid as best we could. It stained the stainless steel, left dark marks that wouldn't come off no matter how much we scrubbed. I sent the samples to a lab in Baton Rouge, told them I needed a full analysis, chemical composition, biological markers, everything. The results came back 3 days later. The fluid was blood, human blood, with active hemoglobin, oxygen carrying capacity intact, white blood cells present, red blood cells that weren't broken down or degraded, fresh blood, 90 years after burial. The lab called me personally. The technician's voice was confused. "Mr. Garrett, there must be contamination in your samples. This blood it's viable. It's like it was drawn yesterday. That's impossible from remains this old." "I know," I said. "We'd like to run more tests. Can you provide additional samples?" No, I hung up. That night, I went back to the funeral home, alone. I needed to see the casket again. Needed to confirm what I'd seen. Needed to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. The casket was in cold storage. We'd moved it there to contain the smell, to slow any biological processes. The room was kept at 38 degrees. I opened the storage unit. The casket was warm. I put my hand on the metal. It was warm. Not room temperature, body temperature, like something inside was generating heat. I should have left. Should have sealed it back up, called the city, told them to bury it again and forget it existed. Instead, I opened it. The smell of iron hit me again, stronger now. The fluid level had risen. It was nearly to the rim of the casket. And Josephine Pruitt's eyes were open, not glazed, not filmed over, open, clear. Brown eyes staring at the lid, at nothing, at everything. And her chest, I swear, her chest moved. Just slightly, like a shallow breath. Like lungs inflating, deflating. I slammed the lid shut, locked it, backed away so fast I hit the storage unit door. My phone was in my hand. I don't remember taking it out. I called the city morgue, asked for the medical examiner, told him we had a situation, told him I needed help. He came at midnight, brought 2 assistants. We opened the casket together. Josephine Pruitt looked exactly as she had that afternoon. Eyes open, chest still, the fluid still pooling around her, her veins still swollen and dark. The medical examiner took samples, examined her, checked for any signs of life. Pupil response, pulse, heart sounds. Nothing. She was dead, clinically, completely, dead. But her blood was alive. He called it adipocere, grave wax, a chemical process where body fat converts to a waxy substance in the right conditions. He said the sealed casket created a perfect environment, low oxygen, high moisture, that the fluid was just liquefied tissue. He wrote it up as advanced liquefaction with unusual preservation characteristics. But before he left, he pulled me aside. "I've been doing this for 30 years, he said quietly. "I've never seen anything like that. Her blood is circulating. I don't know how. I don't know why. But something in that body is still functioning." We buried Josephine Pruitt the next day. Different cemetery, new casket. We transferred her carefully, sealed her up again, lowered her into a concrete vault, covered her with 6 feet of earth. Corey quit the following week. Said he couldn't work with bodies anymore. Couldn't stop thinking about her eyes, about that fluid, about the way her chest moved. I still work funerals. Still prepare bodies, still do exhumations when they're needed. But I think about Josephine Pruitt every time I open a casket. Every time I see veins beneath pale skin. Every time I smell iron in the air. Because I documented it as liquefaction. I wrote the report, followed protocol. But privately, in the part of my mind that works at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep, I know the truth. She looked alive. And somewhere under 6 feet of earth, in a sealed casket in a concrete vault, her blood is still warm, still moving, still waiting. I've been in the funeral business for 14 years. Started as an apprentice at my uncle's mortuary in Lafayette, worked my way up to director. I've handled every kind of service, every kind of death. Accidents, illness, old age, violence. You learn to separate the person from the remains. You have to. Otherwise, the work breaks you. But sometimes the work breaks you anyway. The Devereaux family had owned a private crypt at Cypress Gardens Cemetery since 1911. One of those old above-ground tombs you see in Louisiana. White marble, carved angels, iron gates. The kind of resting place that costs more than most people's houses. 7 generations of Devereaux were interred there. Sealed inside the family vault where summer heat could reach 120 degrees and winter never really came. The last Devereaux, a woman named Camille, died in March. No children, no siblings. The family line ended with her. Her will stipulated that the crypt be dismantled and all remains relocated to a larger Memorial Garden cemetery in Baton Rouge, closer to where her late husband's family was buried. She wanted everyone together. The disinterment order came through in April. My firm got the contract. It was a big job, 14 caskets, over a century of burials. All had to be carefully removed, documented, and transported. We started on a Thursday morning. Me, my assistant Garrett Landry, and 2 workers from the cemetery. The crypt was maybe 12 feet by 8 feet inside. Shelves along the walls, each one holding a casket. Some were ornate, some were simple, all of them old. The oldest was from 1911, just bones and dust inside a collapsed wooden box. The newest was Camille Devereaux herself, buried 3 months earlier in a modern sealed casket. The one that got me was number 7, middle shelf, left side. The nameplate read Lawrence Devereaux, 1923 to 1959. 36 years old when he died. The casket was steel, dark bronze, dented in places. The seal had failed decades ago. You could see rust around the seam. We pulled it out carefully, set it on the gurney. The weight felt normal, maybe 200 pounds. Body plus casket, standard. But when we moved it, something shifted inside. Not a slide, not bones settling. Something heavier, more solid, like the body itself had moved. Garrett looked at me. Gas buildup? Probably, I said. Let's get it outside. We wheeled the gurney out of the crypt. The April sun was bright, hot already. We'd set up a covered work area beside the transport van, a tent with examination tables where we could assess each casket before loading. Protocol required us to open each one, verify the remains match the death certificate, document condition, make sure everything transferred correctly to the new caskets. I'd opened 13 already that morning. Bones mostly, some mummified tissue. One was nearly empty, just a stain and some fabric. Nothing unusual, nothing that bothered me. Lawrence Devereaux's casket was different. I broke the corroded seal. The smell hit immediately. Not rot, not decomposition, dust, old air. That specific scent of enclosed spaces that haven't been opened in decades. Like attics. Like closets in abandoned houses. I lifted the lid. Lawrence Devereaux was remarkably intact, not preserved. Not like embalming had kept him fresh, but intact. His features were still recognizable. High cheekbones, strong jaw, dark hair, though much of it had fallen out. His suit was faded, had been black once, now more gray-brown. His hands were folded across his chest, skin like old leather, mummified. Standard for above-ground burial in Louisiana heat. The combination of high temperature and low moisture desiccates bodies, turns them into natural mummies. I'd seen it before. But his eyes were open, just slightly. The lids weren't fully closed, maybe a 1/4-inch gap, enough to see the eyes underneath. They were cloudy, milky white with hints of brown, glazed over with a film of death and time. But they looked aware. That's the only word I can use. They looked like they were seeing something. Garrett moved closer, stared. That's normal, right? Eyes opening post-mortem? Sometimes, I said. Muscles relax, lids retract. Decomposition gas can create pressure that forces them open. I was reciting textbook answers, trying to convince myself as much as him. I took photographs, documented the body's condition, made notes on the transfer form. Then I closed the lid, sealed it temporarily. We'd put him in a new casket tomorrow after I'd ordered one that matched the family's specifications. We loaded Lawrence into the van, transported him back to the funeral home, set him in the preparation room, a climate-controlled space where we store remains during processing. The room was empty except for Lawrence's casket. We placed it on a table, locked the door. Standard security protocol. I went home around 6 p.m., ate dinner, tried to watch television, but I kept thinking about those eyes, the way they'd looked aware, the way they'd seemed to be seeing even though they were dead and clouded, and couldn't possibly see anything. I slept badly, kept waking up, kept thinking I heard something, movement, breathing. Nothing there when I turned on the lights. I got to the funeral home at 7 a.m., earlier than usual. I wanted to finish the Devereaux transfer, wanted to get Lawrence into his new casket and seal him up and send him to Baton Rouge and never think about him again. I unlocked the preparation room, turned on the lights. Lawrence Devereaux's casket sat on the table exactly where we'd left it. But something felt wrong. The air felt different, heavier, like pressure before a storm. I approached the casket, put my hand on the lid. The metal was warm. Not cold like it should have been in the climate-controlled room. Warm, almost body temperature. I opened it. Lawrence Devereaux's eyes were closed. Completely closed. Lids pressed tight together. No gap, no glimpse of clouded eyes underneath. Just smooth, leathered skin where the eyes had been open yesterday. My hands started shaking. I backed away from the table, stared at the body, at those closed eyes. "Garrett," I called. My voice came out hoarse. "Garrett, get in here." He came running, saw my face, saw the open casket. "What's wrong?" "His eyes," I said. "They were open yesterday. You saw them. They were open." Garrett looked at Lawrence, at the closed eyes, at me. Maybe you remember wrong?" I photographed him. I documented it. His eyes were open. I pulled out my phone, found the photos from yesterday, showed Garrett. There it was, clear as anything. Lawrence Devereaux, eyes partially open, cloudy, staring. Garrett's face went pale. "But they're closed now." "I know. Did someone come in? Did anyone else have access to this room?" "No, it was locked. I'm the only one with a key." We stood there in silence, staring at the body, at those closed eyes. "Muscle contraction," Garrett said finally. "Maybe the eyelid muscles contracted overnight. Pulled the lids shut. Muscles don't work that way after death, especially not after 65 years. Then what? You think he closed them himself?" I didn't answer, because that's exactly what I thought. And saying it out loud would make me sound insane. I examined the body more closely, checked for any signs of disturbance, for movement, for anything that would explain the closed eyes. Nothing. Everything else was exactly as it had been. Same position, same folded hands, same faded suit. Just the eyes. Different. I called the medical examiner, asked if muscle contraction could close eyes post-mortem after decades. He said no. Said once rigidity passes, muscles stay relaxed. Said the only way eyes would close is if someone physically closed them. But nobody had been in that room. Nobody except Lawrence Devereaux. I transferred him to the new casket that afternoon, worked quickly, didn't look at his face more than necessary, sealed him up, loaded him into the transport vehicle. The driver came by at 3 p.m., picked up all 14 Devereaux caskets, signed the transfer documents, drove away toward Baton Rouge. I watched the van disappear down the road, felt relief wash over me. It was over. Lawrence Devereaux was someone else's problem now. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those eyes. Open, then closed. No explanation, no rational answer. I went back to the preparation room at midnight. Don't know why. Maybe I needed to see it empty. Needed to confirm he was really gone. The room was empty, table bare, everything cleaned and ready for the next case. But on the floor, directly where Lawrence's casket had been, was a small puddle. Clear liquid. Like tears. Like water. Like something had wept during the night. I knelt beside it, touched it with my finger. It was warm. I quit the next morning, told my uncle I needed a break. Needed time away from the business. He understood. Said the work gets to everyone eventually. Said I'd be back when I was ready. But I'm not going back. Because I understand something now that I didn't before. The dead aren't always still. They're not always passive. Sometimes they respond. Sometimes they react. Sometimes they close their eyes when they don't want to be seen anymore. And sometimes they open them again when they do. I called the memorial garden in Baton Rouge 3 days ago. Asked how the Devereaux reburials went. The coordinator said everything was fine. All 14 caskets interred without incident. But when I asked specifically about Lawrence Devereaux, she paused. "Funny you should mention him," she said. When we opened his casket for final verification, his eyes were open. Just slightly. The family requested we close them before sealing the tomb. "And did you?" I asked. "Of course, I closed them myself. Made sure they stayed shut. I didn't ask her to check if they'd opened again. Didn't want to know. Because some questions don't have answers you want to hear. I work at a hardware store now. Sell paint and tools. Go home at 5. Sleep through the night. But sometimes I wonder about Lawrence Devereaux, about what he sees through those cloudy eyes when he opens them, about what he's looking for, about whether he'll keep opening them and closing them for decades more, trapped in darkness, waiting for something only he understands. And I'm grateful I'll never have to see him again. But I still check my phone sometimes. Look at that photograph from April. Lawrence Devereaux, eyes open, staring at nothing. Or maybe staring at me. Maybe knowing that someday, decades from now, someone will open my casket too. And maybe my eyes will be open. And maybe they'll close on their own when no one's watching. Because death isn't an ending. It's just a different kind of waiting.